Wisdom is sweeter than honey. It brings more joy than wine. It illumines like the sun. It is more precious than jewels. It causes the ears to hear and the heart to understand. I love her like a mother, and she embraces me as her child. I will follow in her footsteps, and she will not cast me away. Now, what do you actually know about the Queen of Sheba? So this would have been around the time of Solomon. Solomon was 1000 BCE. Around the time of Solomon, this would be where her kingdom would have been. Okay, this would be where she was. At one time, it was rumored that her kingdom, the kingdom of the Queen of Sheba. Now remember that Sheba is not her name. Sheba is the land. The land was called Sheba. The people were called Sabaeans. Okay, so this is the land of Sheba. So the queen, or the people who ruled this land, at one time the land went from Ethiopia, went all the way over to India. It went down to South Africa, and all the way over to Chad. Okay, that was what it was at one time. That's what's written. That's what they say at one time. I think what it means, that could have been true. But I think there's a story that, all civilization started around in Ethiopia, around the rift, when people stood up and we became Homo erectus. And I think the people that were here, the first people just traveled. So they traveled from here to here, and maybe up to here, and over to here. And of course, if you're with Lucia, they probably traveled up into here. So it's just the story about her kingdom could have been there, but you find remnants of the language and of the people all over. The ancient language of Yemen is called Himyaritic. Okay, and it's a Semitic language like Hebrew, like Arabic, and it's not spoken anymore. But they found images of the language here. They've also found it in Australia, okay, and they've actually found it in the Hopis. So they found remnants of the same language in these places. So I do think Lucia's theory about people traveling and the migration, the African migration, seems to hold strong for me there. So there is already a lineage set up that queens, their job was to give wisdom to the kings. So Queen of Sheba's journey wasn't so much to get wisdom, to learn his wisdom, but to give him wisdom. So it's very important to know. Also very important to know is this word Sheba pops up a lot. So does anyone know the name of King David's wife, also known as Solomon's mother? Okay. Okay, well her name was Bathsheba. Okay? And that literally in Hebrew means daughter of Sheba. So the lineage of Sheba was already in that area. So Bathsheba, was probably just a priestess of this tradition, right? So it's all over, all throughout. So of course there's many paintings of her, not many, but there's paintings of her. Oh, this is so interesting. Paintings of her in Ethiopia, of course. But what happened to her is that she became what?
Whitewash.
Well, yeah, but wait, not in Ethiopia. I'm getting there, but hang on. But in Ethiopia, she became not the Queen of Sheba, but she became the Virgin Mary. So instead of saying Sheba, Solomon, and Menelik, you see Mary, baby Jesus, and Joseph. Right. So when you see the pictures of Mary and Joseph and Joseph, you kind of go, is that Mary, or is that, it's very, very, you don't know. And she's always wearing the blue for the Queen of Heaven colors, Right. So it's like you're kind of and it's very, with this rays and so it's like you kind of go, their iconography is like really, they haven't left the paganism, even though they say they have, they just gave it the different name. Yeah. I believe this woman existed. Powerful woman existed, lived, ruled, died, perhaps left an heir. Was a great diplomat. Yeah, she's beautiful. She, so she has all these great qualities, and powerful. And we remember her. Mm-hmm. So even if we don't know her name and we call her Queen of Sheba instead of calling her Makeda or Bukis, it's like she's here. She's in our psyche somewhere, and she hasn't gone away after all these years.
But she's come through time.
Mm-hmm. She's come through time.
And this is taken in the Kathmandu Valley of Nepal, where I did my master's research. And on the outside of this temple, you'll see that there's mirrors. And the mirrors are there to reflect our own divinity back to ourselves. So it's not only that we're going to pay homage to the goddess, to the divine, but we're going to reconnect with the divinity that is within. And there's a very important concept in the Hindu tradition. It's called darshan. Darshan means to see and be seen by the deity. So not only are we looking at a slide, a photograph of this temple in Nepal, we are looking at Goddess herself. We are looking at Durga, and she's looking at each of us. Right? So I ask you just to hold that, keep that in mind throughout the presentation, that each of these images are manifestations of the divine. So in the Hindu tradition, I'm going to be talking about one of the sects of the Hindu tradition called the Shakti tradition. And in this tradition, the energy that's called Shakti is the female energy that's a dynamic force of the universe. It's an activating energy. It's the energy that gives birth to all life. And contrary to other traditions where the feminine takes a more passive role, in this particular tradition, it's reversed. And it's the male energy, the Shiva energy, that's quiescent, that's receptive, that's more passive. So we have Shakti, which is really a philosophical concept. It's an energy. Like we called in that Shakti. Each goddess, each woman especially, has Shakti. We called in those qualities in our invocation. And we'll see how they play out in the different rituals and mythology and so forth. But she's a great birth giver. She is the womb from which we all emerge. Everything on this planet, everything that's animate and inanimate, comes ultimately from her. This particular image is taken from a temple in northeastern India called Kamakhya, and it's the goddess of the great yoni. And she's worshipped there. She's been worshipped there for thousands of years as a clefted rock where that turns red, actually, for 1 month every year. She has her menstrual cycle once a year. So, but you find this. So what's important to remember that it's the goddess, it's the Shakti, but everything is ultimately Shakti. Everything is divine. And then you find the symbol of the yoni, the vagina, the sacred womb, all throughout, and it's honored, it's venerated throughout the Indian world. So she is the birth giver. She is also the preserver, the nurturer, the goddess of sustenance. She's life itself. She's fruition. She is the flowers that bloom. These are actually flowers that are offerings to her, to the goddess Kamakhya, the goddess who is the yoni, great yoni. And what's interesting about these flowers, her favorite flowers are the hibiscus and marigolds. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Pele, but there's a lot of other Pacific goddesses who also their favorite flower is the hibiscus. So you see even in the offerings this similarity cross-culturally. And another thing that's interesting about these flowers, and this is just my own observation, that she's offered red, orange, and yellow flowers. And if you think about, if you know the chakra system, and the first 3 chakras are red, orange, and yellow, and those are the ones that ground us more in the earth. And there's something to me about bringing that divinity down more into our bodies, because this is really a fully embodied tradition. It's not something that's transcendent.
It's healing for the heart and mind. For others, it's intellectual. It's more about the theories. It's hermeneutic, systems thinking. And for many others, it's a found religion. So it lends itself to many different areas of need. But what is important is that we're hardwired for spirituality. Humans are hardwired. We have a deep longing to know spirituality. So we create the various faiths that we have. But the book isn't about changing one's experience of faith if you're involved in a so-called traditional monotheism religion. It is about enhancing that religion by bringing the woman's story back into it, a truthful story, more truthful story. We're reclaiming that within the tradition. So all of us, including Christian and Muslim women, can find a way to, and Jewish women, although they're working very hard, they've produced a women's Torah. We're all working very hard to reform our traditions. So this is, however you look at it, a second or third Reformation, spiritual Reformation. We hope it will intrigue you to want to know more. And if it's through this book, please feel free to contact Women's Heritage Project. The funds from this book go to continuing an endowment and giving grants to women's research in various fields, including theology. Thank you very much. This is Jane Marie Dement.